You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans.
Where you go, Auburn fans? Welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. We got some spring football practice. It's exciting. We even had some fans inside the Jordan-Hare. Jared, spring is in the air. I can smell it. It's amazing. Football's here, guys. It's back.
I'm excited. I forgot they were having fans, and then I saw a couple of posts about it and got me excited for not only just that, but you know what it might mean for fall football. So it would be great to be able to have a packed house again.
Yeah.
And definitely to have an A-Day. So yeah, I'm excited, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty promising that we'll have an A-Day with fans, considering they had a regular open practice in Jordan-Hare. They just asked people to socially distance and wear masks. So I thought that was a good sign. We'll have fans at A-Day, just depending on, I'm sure they'll make an announcement pretty soon about what's going to be included with that, how many fans are allowed, how they're doing tickets, all that fun stuff. But just gets me excited because if we're already at that point, maybe even more than 20% would be exciting to me inside of Jordan-Hare, especially since we got a new coaching staff, new football schemes on offense and defense. This is going to be I feel like A-Days are really exciting when it comes to new coaching staffs, just because you get to see a little bit of what's going on, the change of what's happening, and then you get to see almost every A-Day, you get to see the new stars, and maybe a couple of them emerge during A-Day. But, Jared, let's talk about this first week of practice. I think the team only got 3 practices when they were planning to do 4, just because one of them got canceled because of a tornado warning that was going on in the Auburn-Opelika area. And this was a pretty good week from what it sounds like. There was a couple positions, like it sounds like wide receivers just kind of banged up, and they've got some room to improve. But I think we're getting to a spot where, especially on defense, I'm feeling pretty good about this. It's just a matter of, I'm sure, the defense switching over to the mindset of what is this new offense or new defense, gonna look like under Derek Mason. Jared, any kind of like high level thoughts of what you thought about this first week of practice?
Yeah, I mean, I you got to hear a couple of clips from Harsin, and just you just want to keep hearing more from the coach just to get a feel for him. The one thing I like is that I think he is very detail oriented, and I think that's going to be key to again, Gus was kind of would win on some flash big plays and stuff. I think Harsin's going to be very deep, build this thing from the ground up, build it from offensive and defensive line blocking and tackling, and he's very focused on that. He made some comments about, I think you hit on this, the receivers. I think that was probably the most down that he got, I guess. Not that he was down, but he said that's going to take a lot of work, the receiving group. But they're young. We knew that.
Yeah, I think it was like 17% of our production last year is returning. So, I mean, you already got an uphill battle when it comes to that.
Yeah, he said that, several of them were injured as well. He made mention that a few of them were slipping, on the when they were coming out of their route. Hey, is that a part of the grass, wrong cleats? I don't know. He made it sound like, we got to work on that and clean that up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I took away really was just talking about, which you and I think is basic, but it's not in college football anymore, was the exchange under center. He said they're continuing to work on that, and they just need to get that to a point where you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
That's second nature, and they're not there yet. So just a few things I took away that were, interesting.
Yeah, and it's good that, I mean, he immediately was like, yeah, these things are obvious to me that we need to work on those. And that I'm sure will set the stage for what kind of drills and what kind of practices they're going to work through over the next few weeks of this spring training. And there's a lot of things like that I feel like Auburn hasn't traditionally done, especially under Gus Malzahn, which is, getting under center. I mean, the only times I could think of it was if we're doing a jet sweep, we're doing a sugar huddle, and those were few and far between in comparison to when, Bo would line up 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and shotgun. And that's something that the quarterbacks and also the center has to get used to. And Harsin was essentially saying, yeah, we're going to do probably a higher proportion of under center than we probably would otherwise, just because they got to practice it. They got to work on it. So it's good to see that, the little things that I'm sure some of the fans might even notice, that they're already starting to identify those, and I'm sure work on those plenty of times in spring.
Does that AJ, does that kind of give you a hint as to what type of offense we're going to be running when he makes mention that getting under center is going to be a priority of learning how to do that?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, the word, and you and I have talked about it before, is multiple. I mean, it's a multiple offense, so I feel like it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be 100% under center. I don't think that works, but it's going to be some mixture of the two. And from that, you got to get comfortable with it. I mean, if lining up in an I formation under center works, you got to be comfortable with doing that, and comfortable enough that you can make the handoff from the center to the quarterback cleanly, and then potentially to a running back, or dish it out to a wide receiver. I mean, you got to make that process as smooth as possible. And this is where spring, this is the time when you work on those basic fundamentals. And this is the groundwork for setting things up, especially over the summer when you're just working out. And when the fall practice comes around in July, August, right before the season, this is when all of those little things will build upon themselves to make it into an offense. Hopefully by game one, even, we're able to run a good number of plays, a good number of looks out of what Harsin and Mike Bobo want to do. Let's talk about some of the stuff, just offensive wise and defensive wise, what's going on. And so let's start out with offense first. So obviously we had Bo Nix. He was the main quarterback, but actually right behind him, Grant Loy, who, is kind of right now the number 2 guy. He had a slight injury, so he wasn't out there running drills, but we actually had Trey Lindsey, a walk-on, kind of as the number 2 guy. And there were a couple of clips of Trey Lindsey rolling out, getting some running lanes, and he looked pretty good. I mean, for a walk-on, I was actually pretty impressed. That
Are you trying to get a quarterback controversy going, AJ?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm kidding.
Nah, I mean, at this point, I mean, it's pretty obvious that, I mean, if we're already putting Trey Lindsey in there, even above like Demetrius Davis has a little bit of room, or more really a lot of room to kind of grow as a quarterback before, that quarterback controversy starts, creeping in there. Hey, but if Demetrius Davis is, come fall time, he's looking pretty good. I don't know if there'll be any controversy, but I think it'll push Bo Nix to be a better quarterback, because he knows not only does he have Demetrius Davis, but Grant Loy may be right behind him, nipping at his feet to get that QB1 kind of position. Let's talk about this, because I think running back situation is looking a little bit better than it did in the offseason, where we had some guys transfer out. And now at one point, I think we only had two guys that in the running back room that had scholarships. And now we've got, I think, 4. You got Tank, Shivers,
Devin Barrett. And then the guy from Mississippi that just recruited.
Yeah, exactly.
That just signed.
Yeah. Was it Javaris Hunter, I think is his name?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
So, I mean, you've got more depth now, which makes me feel better. One of the things we've said before, Tank's durability is got to be of importance this year. And it looked like he was pretty physical out there, even in just shoulder pads and helmet out there. So you got to think that hopefully that durability is improving a little bit more. Jared, any other kind of like things that stood out to you as far as the offense over the last week? or anything from the spring practice that they had that was open to the public?
Yeah, I mean, you got to piece this together. There wasn't a lot of footage of what went on, but they made mention, and I think they got in a couple of 2 tight end sets, which is exciting and kind of telling about what we're going to be doing here. I really think that we're going to be pretty heavy run. I think we're going to build it around Tank, and when we do pass, we probably will try to max protect, bring in some more tight ends. But here's the cool thing about that. They'll be in there to block, and then you can decoy where they pretend to block and go out for passes, because apparently J.J. Pegues had an amazing catch. Who's the other guy? Who's what the other tight end that got injured last year and came in towards the end?
What is it? Brandon Frazier. That's who it is.
Frazier. I think he might have had a good catch. Or we got another freshman, too. We got a couple of tight end options that are big guys. I mean, I even heard that either we did or there is potentially talks of even putting Pegues in the slot position occasionally.
Who the heck thought of that?
Yeah, I know. And then I love it too. And he's going to be playing some fullback. I mean, that guy's so versatile that, you put him in at fullback and you're like, okay, this is probably going to be a run. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe we, maybe we send him out in the flat and roll everybody else the other way and he's wide open. I mean, he's so versatile.
Oh my goodness. That was so beautiful.
I think that, last year I felt like we got him like 1 or 2 touches a game just so the fans would be pleased. I don't think there was really a plan. I think it was just, hey, let's just let people see what he can do.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this year there's more of a plan of, all right, how can he actually help us, get the ball down the field?
I mean, there was even one of the plays that in the Saturday spring practice that they had open to the public where he high-pointed a ball from Bo Nix. I mean, not only can the man hurdle over guys or make a crazy spin move, but now he can high point a ball. He's a 300-pound man, and he's jumping up to catch balls that most people can't catch. I love it. This is the kind of stuff that I'm here for, and I really hope J.J. Pegues, the phenom, the freak nature that he is, gets the ball more times this year. I mean, I'd be happy seeing him get the ball 4 or 5 times in a game because it's going to be a positive gain when he touches the ball because one guy tackling him, good luck, especially if it's DB, if he's out, as a slot receiver or something. So, and then on top of that, I mean, we haven't even talked about Brandon Frazier either, but what were you going to say?
Yeah, Brandon Frazier's probably more your prototypical tight end size and set. I think it's going to be more, I don't know, but I think it's going to be more, you remember how when Alabama started building this dynasty, they weren't necessarily real fun to watch on offense. It was like, all right, let's stay ahead of the chains, be smart. If we need to dump it to a tight end or running back, let's do that, get it to 3rd and 2. I think that's what we're going to be doing. And so that's going to be key with Pegues and those guys. And then you hit them with a big pass occasionally. But it's not going to be a lot of trickeration or going deep and stuff. I don't think that's not going to – the main plan is going to be real physical. Run the ball well, take the short passes if we need to, stay ahead of the chain, and keep getting first downs and moving down the field. And at the end of the game, your hope is that you out-physical the other team. I think that's going to be what this offense is going to be more resembling, which is different from what we've been seeing. Yeah. So I say all that to say tight ends can be a huge role in that and keeping the chains moving. And I don't think it's going to be just coach talk this year. I think we really are going to be seeing a lot of tight end action.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't even mention John Samuel Schenker, who's playing baseball right now, so he's kind of splitting his time between baseball and football. And he was a guy kind of the down and dirty, almost fullback sometimes position where he kind of lead block a little bit. And you throw in J.J. Pegues and Brandon Frazier in there, I'm feeling pretty good about that, especially if we get a couple of those guys out there on the field at the same time. You got lots of options out of those kinds of packages.
What did you think about my assumption of what it's going to look like offensively? We haven't even talked about that. I mean, are you thinking we're going to try to go high-powered, or is this going to be more of a – I mean, we're going to take – if it's there, you take it. Yeah. I'm just saying I think it's going to be more of that run the ball, stay ahead of the chains.
I can see it. I could see a heavier lean on our running backs, especially early in the season when our wide receivers that were playing were essentially mostly backups last year or not even on our roster. So it's a lot of growth for them that I think only has to come with time. Like if we had Seth Williams out there, I'd say it probably looks a little bit more balanced, but we don't. He's going to the NFL, and our guys behind him, while they're very talented like Xavion Capers or Kobe Hudson, they still need the reps, game time reps, especially in the SEC, before I feel like we go to like a heavier passing strategy in a game.
Well, and you make a great point. That could be too. While we may almost be forced to rely on tight ends, especially Shanker. I mean, he's not going to wow anybody, but I don't think I've ever seen the guy drop a pass. So I mean,
that.
There could be a lot of utilization of tight ends almost out of necessity, which then could lead to really good things because we realize how good those guys maybe are.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, honestly, if I'm thinking about this, it's probably going to be in like 65-70% run, and then throw in some passes in there. It may be closer to 50-50, but I think early in the season we'll see, especially with the besides Penn State and their first 4 games, I feel like that's kind of setting up for, all right, we can establish the run game, make sure that's good, get the offensive line gelling before we hit some SEC opponents. And then once the SEC opponents hit, I mean, it's kind of like whatever works that week and whatever you think, that's what you got to go with. If it's a heavier passing against the defense, we got to go with that. So I feel like early in the season, I think we're going to see a lot of running.
Yeah. Shanker's our leading, I guess, returning pass catcher. He's not a receiver.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I think he's probably the most experienced returning pass catcher.
That is nuts. But I mean, he did make some good plays last year and the years before. I mean, not only is he doing the dirty work of the blocking, but he's got good hands. So
I don't think, like I said, I don't think I've ever seen him drop one that went his way. Now, and he made was it the bowl game, or he made a play in what was like 3rd and 14, and he caught it and kept fighting and got the first down. It was something crazy, but anyways,
I love to see it. You love to see it.
Yeah.
Another couple things. So offensive line, at least from the practice we had. Probably some of the more offensive linemen names that you might know: Alec Jackson, Tayshawn Manning, Nick Brahms, Keandre Jones, and Brodarius Ham. Guys that got good reps last year, and guys that I think now they're at a healthier state that we can start building on something. As long as the offensive line stays healthy, I think we've got a good shot at building something. Especially kind of at the end of last season, we started to build, especially on the run offense. The offensive line was getting some push, opening up holes. And now we can kind of build on that, especially if we lean heavier on the run early in the season. What's your thoughts on, I know one of the biggest questions is pass protection. Where do you think we're going to stand as far as pass protection this year? Do you think we're going to be better than we were last year? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we will. I don't think shouldn't say you can't be worse, but I would. It would be hard to take a step back, in my opinion. And you're bringing in a guy that I think is pretty highly respected and Will Friend, as far as the O-line situation and coaching goes. You got another year of experience with the guys that are there. I think that I think at the end of the day, I know you're talking pass protection. I think, run blocking, they did above average, I would say, last year when they were all healthy. Pass blocking below average. So if we could get the pass blocking to just be average, keep the run blocking above average, I would say we'd have a lot more success. But you really don't know. At the end of the day, one of the harder positions is O-line and offensive tackle. Most people don't realize that, but it's all technique, and you got to be real specific with how you do things. And so it's going to take a lot of coaching, but I think we will be better overall. I think getting under center will help a little bit. Play action will help a little bit. But even like somebody was talking about how, there's going to be breakdowns, even good offensive line. So they need to also train Bo to say, hey, look, pick up where the one guy that got missed is coming from, and don't bail out on the play. Like, learn how to avoid that one guy shift like your Drew Breeses and those guys do. Just shift a little bit, keep the play alive. So a lot of things go into us having a better pass game.
Yeah. And I am confident that at this point we can. Bobo has been known to be one of those quarterback whisperer type coaches that can really work with somebody. And Harsin's kind of the same way. He's a very hands-on kind of coach that will get in the quarterback room when needed to get in there and help out the quarterbacks because the offense runs through them. And if they know what to do in certain situations, like if pressure's in your face and avoid that pressure, you keep moving down the field versus taking a sack, or worse, fumbling the ball or something. So yeah, that's the good thing that I think Mike Bobo and Harsin, kind of that combo, they've worked well with quarterbacks in the past. And it's as long as Bo Nix is receiving that advice well, I think that's a good sign. There were pictures and there were videos of Bo Nix. If he wasn't in the play, he was right next to Bryan Harsin, talking to him about plays. What are you seeing? How do you want to work on the details of practice? And if that's our little, it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg that we get to see of practices. You got to think he's doing that in the practices themselves that we don't get to see. And that's exciting because he's working hand in hand with Harsin and Bobo to figure out what's going to work and how they want to run the offense. Because Bo Nix is, I think it's the third offensive coordinator that Bo Nix has had to have in his 3 years at college. So this is another change. This is another growing point for him. But honestly, I think this could be a really good one for him, especially if we rely on the run a little bit, and when the opportunities present themselves, throw a good pass. And Bo Nix has shown pretty good consistency of throwing good passes, not throwing it right to a defender. That's the kind of thing that I think we can kind of lean on a little bit.
We're going to take a quick break from this episode for a special announcement. One of the things that we take great pride here at the E2C Network are our listeners are really our E2C Network family. Now, I know they enjoy listening to us, but let's be honest, every once in a while, they probably would like a little bit of change of pace. Well, that's where you come in if you're a business owner. If you have any interest in partnering with us in terms of ads or sponsorships on our podcast episodes, you can reach us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com. Let us help you reach the widest variety of Auburn fans out there. Come on. Who else listens to a network where they cover everything from Auburn football to The Bachelor and the connections it has with Auburn? Utilize our podcast, Facebook Live shows, and other flexible partnership opportunities that are available upon request. Let us help you reach the E2C Network family and the Auburn family at large on how you might best be able to serve them. Reach out to us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com for more information. That's all we have for you in this special message. Let's get back into the episode.
Let's kind of shift a little bit over to defense and kind of talk about Derek Mason, the 3-4, kind of what we're looking at there. So at least right now, the first team kind of look like we've got, as far as linebackers go, TD Moultrie, Derek Hall, Owen Papo, and Zacoby McClain. So Owen Papo, Zacoby McClain, those were the two main guys last year at linebacker. But this year we've actually got TD Moultrie and Derek Hall. So Derek Hall was more of an edge rusher, or our buck position. So that's going to be a little bit of, I'm sure, a transition for them. But I think, Jared, this may be like a bigger conversation, defensive mindset, and then maybe even bleeding into a lot of offensive mindset of knowing not only your position, but maybe the position right next to you. So if you need to, you can kind of get into that position, especially if the offense is going and you're not able to sub in guys. What do you think about kind of Harsin's mentality on that from what we've seen from practice?
Yeah, and I think it's more of Derek Mason on this. I heard Smoke Monday say that, they're basically learning all the secondary roles. He said there could be times you could see me playing defensive back. I think it's it's probably going to play a part of, Mason trying to trick the offense occasionally, making shifts. Could be a situation where, right before the snap, smoke comes down on DB and somebody else drops back to safety. And, any shift or confusion like that could throw an offense off. So probably some of it's going to be just for eye candy, but it really could have an effect. But I think all in all, I think you make a good point, or I know we talked about it before. These teams go fast now, and if they're not substituting in and out, it does allow for the more positions you can shift over and we not have to put somebody else on the field because we can't, and it could help stop a drive. So I think, too, Mason's giving them more coaching to allow, like, they're going to be able to make decisions or be trained how to make decisions on the field. I'm not saying that didn't happen in the past, but it's like they're going to be allowed to think a little more and say, all right, this is based off my training, this is what I think is going to happen. Which could be good or bad, because if they're wrong, it's going to look really bad. But it's going to be a different type of defense and different type of mentality, and, I think it'll be fun to see. I do trust Mason. We've talked about it. He had a great defense at Stanford. At Vanderbilt, I don't know the numbers, but they were always, they always fought hard.
Yeah.
There's just only so much you can do at Vanderbilt. So.
Yeah, and that just kind of got me thinking about when we're under Derek Mason. I mean, we always thought of Kevin Still as a good defensive coordinator. And I remembered some of the linebackers under Kevin Still essentially saying, hey, once you see certain things, like, you do a reaction. You react immediately to it. And I'm sure that's going to be a little bit of a growing point for our linebackers, because that's kind of, the quarterbacks of the defense. They're kind of, telling people where to go, shift this way, and, what kind of plays, because they usually have a pretty good feel of what's going on. And that may be a little bit of a growing to learn, especially since they're moving to a 3-4 or 4-3 potentially kind of formations on defense, what to do in what situations. So I think that'll come with time. But with Owen, Zacoby, Derek Hall, T.D. Moultrie, and whoever else potentially plays linebacker, you got to learn that. You got to learn that and pick up on it quick. Because one of the good things I did see was Derek Mason was in people's faces and coaching them up. He was a very hands-on defensive coordinator, which I feel like is a very good thing. You're essentially getting a coach in your ear, kind of helping you out during practice, so that when game time hits, you have the mindset of the coach already, knowing where exactly to go.
Well, you make a good point, too. Last year we got to realize KJ Britt was going to be that quarterback. I mean, we lost our quarterback on defense. So,
game 2 or 3 last year?
Yeah, it was Georgia. I mean, and that was early on last year. So this year, Owen Papo and Zacoby McClain and even Smoke Monday, apparently everybody looks at him as a leader, too. So these guys are now going in knowing they're going to be leaders, whereas last year they were kind of all probably looking at KJ, and then he gets hurt, and it's just kind of like, all right, who's going to step up? So this year I think it'll be, leadership matters. And I think Owen and Zacoby probably mostly, because he wasn't supposed to be starting, and he had to fill that role, and then wound up leading the SEC in tackles. So he's probably going to be more confident, speaking of getting players into positions. So I think it'll be nice to see the how that all manifests.
Yeah, definitely. In the secondary, we have a familiar face, Roger McCreary, which is awesome to have him back. I feel like he was on the cusp of potentially leaving and decided to come back for his senior year, even though he could have gone to the NFL. We have Jalen Simpson, who for the most part of last year was injured. And out of the Saturday practice, he actually almost picked off a ball that was passed to Elijah Canyon. So I feel like he's got some high potential there. Even last year, I had really high expectations for him. It was just kind of hampered by him getting injured early in the season and essentially battling that injury.
Yeah, you jinxed him. I think you mentioned him as a player to watch. To watch, and he got hurt, I think.
He was my player to watch game 1. I think he got injured that game, and I slap my face
AJ.
Every time I think about it, because I'm almost like, dang it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
You got the commentator curse or whatever you want to call it.
Are we as popular as the Madden curse? When you're on the cover of Madden.
That's right.
I think later in the season I mentioned somebody and they got hurt too. So
man,
maybe we only mention other teams' players.
Yeah, maybe we should mention players that we want to do bad.
Yeah, yeah, just another team when we're playing them say, oh, I think so and so is going to do really well for them, and then they get. Well, I don't want to wish anybody get hurt, but maybe they don't do well at least.
Yeah, exactly. Also in the secondary, we've got Smoke Monday and Ladarius Tennyson. Smoke Monday, you've heard him. He's definitely a leader on the defense. But Ladarius Tennyson, you may not have heard his name before, but it's a name you definitely want to keep your ear out because he's going to be out there. And, most of the players, if they're asked about who do you think standing out this spring practice or in the workouts, it's Ladarius Tennyson. A lot of guys are talking very highly about him, and it's the first name that comes out, which is telling me something that this guy is going to be a producer on defense. And, he's already getting starting reps on the first group out during the Saturday practice. So he's out there playing well, working well with the defense, and picking things up from Derek Mason's defense. Last thing I want to talk about on spring practice was for special teams. There's not a whole bunch that we got to really see. There was some field goals and then field goal block. They had kind of both of those packages set up. But they really didn't have any punt return, kickoff return, any of that installed yet. But I'm sure that'll come, considering they only had essentially a couple practices before Saturday to get things going. So I'm sure those will be installed. We'll start to see kind of the pecking order of who's going to be the punt returners and kickoff returners for this next year. I'm sure this punt returner, that's going to be a key position I'm going to be watching because all of our punt returners from last year are not returning, and I want to see who ends up landing that spot because I think that's a key spot of reliability, but can you break that one tackle and get up to speed quick? All right, Jared, any other thoughts before we move on? We're going to talk a little bit about Pro Day that Auburn had this last week.
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. Like you said, wasn't a lot to assess with special teams. So, it was good to get out there and let the fans see it. But it wasn't like they tipped their hand on a lot of stuff. So that'll come later on as we get closer to fall.
Being 3 practices in with the new offense and defense, you're not going to be tipping your hand anywhere.
No.
But it is fun. The fans that I've heard that got to go enjoyed it, and just seeing new players. Come 8A, we'll probably see a little bit more of now that packages are getting more installed with what you're gonna do. Maybe we see a little bit more.
Well, and you real quick, I know we're moving on, but you mentioning A-Day, it's going to be a perfect storm. New coach. We want to see what the offense looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're allowed to, essentially not, if there's no limit, then, nobody got to go last year really. So
Mm-hmm.
people are going to be antsy to get out. So if it's a nice day, on top of new coach and stuff, it could be a nice crowd.
Yeah.
Depending on what they allow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to see, even if it's, just me sitting in my living room watching it on TV, I'm still going to be really excited about it and seeing what they can do.
Yes,
All right, let's switch over to Pro Day. So we've talked about this before, but the NFL Combine isn't going to happen in the traditional format of everybody coming to one location and doing their all of the measurables, weight, height, how your vertical, bench press, 40 time, all those different drills that the NFL Combine puts the top players in the country through that are going to the NFL. And this year they've had to kind of decentralize that to all of the different schools and their pro days. So Auburn's Pro Day is typically for the players that didn't get invited to the NFL Combine. Maybe if one of the players at the NFL Combine didn't do as well, maybe he wanted to show that he's actually better than he did at the NFL Combine. So then they you run the 40 again at Auburn and then up their time or get their times better. But it just puts that much more emphasis on Auburn's Pro Day this year. And some of the top guys out there were Anthony Schwartz, Seth Williams, Eli Stove. So those were the guys on offense that we got to see. On defense, we had KJ Britt, Jamie and Sherwood, Jordan Peters, Christian Tutt. We had a couple others in there as well. Let's see. Actually, a couple players previously that played for us. Sal Canella, JJ Wilson, and Trey Threat also perform at our pro day. So did any of those kind of stand out to you from what you've heard? And if so, what kind of stood out to you now that they had the pro day?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at Schwartz's 40 time. Pretty impressive, 4.26. I think it was listed as unofficial. I mean, I don't know exactly what all that means, but I think was it Henry Ruggs in 2020 did a 4.27.
Yeah, so literally, 1 millisecond slower.
Yeah, so Schwartz was 4.26 is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you're below like 4.3, 4.4, I mean, it's obvious you're fast.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that 40 times, they put a lot of weight on that stuff. I mean, that's gotten people big paydays. So it'll be curious to see what that does for him.
Yeah.
KJ Britt, I mean, I think he do pretty good on the bench? Do you know the numbers on that?
Yeah, he did really well. I mean, even Auburn put out a video. He had 24 reps, and that's benching 225 24 times. That's pretty significant.
What's the standard on that? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so I was kind of curious because 24 reps sounds pretty good, right? I was like, all right, let's go check back and even last year, what were linebackers doing? Because at the NFL Combine, you're competing against the other linebackers, and last year, kind of like that range that was the top echelon of linebackers that got drafted were 21 to 30 reps, and KJ Britt was right in the middle of that at 24. So he could potentially, I mean, we already know it. He's very talented on the football field, but he's just showing that brute strength that a linebacker has to have, especially in the NFL when you're going up against 300-pound offensive linemen or very strong running backs. You got to have that. So he's showing that he's got that strength there.
Well, and something about KJ too, and there's a lot of guys in the draft that have this, but just him as a person and the work ethic. Because I was reminded, I saw a headline where a first round draft pick, the Dolphins just cut him because they just couldn't. They were trying to work with him. I think he had gotten cut from another team, and they just couldn't get him focused on the right things. And that's a big deal. So I think you won't ever have that problem with KJ.
No.
Got the great work ethic, got the size.
He's got the leadership too.
He's got the leadership ability. He was doing leadership stuff at the Senior Bowl around a bunch of other seniors. Yeah. So, I just think he's got that natural leadership. So he's probably not going to go first or second round, but I think somebody will get a steal with that guy because I think he's absolutely built to play linebacker, built to be a leader, and is just a good guy.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get his 110% effort every day he shows up.
Yeah, definitely. One that stood out to me was Seth Williams' 40 time. It's not in the 4.4 range, but it was a 4.5, which is pretty good. I mean, it kind of shows you he's got top end speed as well, that he can get up to speed real quick. Which, I'm thinking, especially in his sophomore year, we went deep with him a lot. And he could go out there and grab some balls that were really far out there. So, I think that kind of shows you, not only is he big, he can, man up against people physically, but he's got top end speed. So,
I'm not an NFL scout, but I think Seth basically his mentality on the 40 times like just don't screw this up.
Right.
And to me, 4 or 5, he didn't screw it up. Seth is going to get drafted on his hands.
Yes.
And can we teach him to run routes is going to be the question. And I think you can. To me, he's going to be more of a AJ. You might be too young, but Keyshawn Johnson, if you remember him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was a big body guy, good hands, would go over the middle, stuff like that. I think that's what Seth will probably. He's not going to blow you away with speed, but he's going to catch anything near him, and he's able to extend away from the body. He's just got that natural ability to where he's going to catch most of the stuff, even if he's covered.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the 40 time was really going to make or break him unless he did like a 4.7 or 4.8.
Right. Yeah.
So 4.5 was like, don't screw it up,
Yeah, exactly. Don't pull a hammy. Just run the route or run the 40 and put out it's a pretty good time. So another one that stood out to me was Jordan Peters. He got the highest vertical of anybody from the Auburn Pro Day with 39.5 inches. So, standing from, on the ground and literally jumping straight up, he jumped 39 inches, which is pretty impressive. And I was trying to look back because, again, I'm trying to reference this of, what is the standard? And, last year, some of the top cornerbacks were kind of around that 41. So he was just literally, an inch and a half off of that, from being at the top of what a cornerback is. So, that's kind of showing you if there's a jump ball, he can jump up there and pretty much compete against any wide receiver, even if they're a little bit taller than him.
AJ, I don't think I could do that on a trampoline. I think my vertical is like negative numbers.
Yeah, I mean it's if I did it right now, it'd probably be like 12 inches or something. I'd be pretty happy with that.
I'd be happy with that. If I don't pull a hammy or tear an ACL, I would walk away thinking I'd won something.
Right, exactly. And these guys are doing, literally think about that. That's like a little kid. They are literally jumping as high as a little kid that's 3 foot tall or 4 foot tall. Shoot. Yep. It's pretty tall. That's some good ups.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's why they're playing football and you and I are talking about them playing football.
That's right. That is right. Jared, any other thoughts before we get out of here about spring practice, pro day, before we go?
No, I mean, I've shared with you, and I have not any more information than anybody else, but I'm just really pumped about the staff and what the team's going to look like next year. I think the attention to detail is going to be very evident, and I think people should be cautiously optimistic. We have talent still. We need to recruit better next year so we don't have a huge drop-off, but right now we have some talent there in some very key positions, so just excited to see this continue to grow and, throughout the spring and summer, and then see what we can put out on the field in fall. But and I usually try to be pretty realistic. I'm pretty optimistic on this, though.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the optimism part of it, especially with matchups like, last year we struggled really, really, even from the beginning with Georgia and Alabama. And I'm just thinking if we can nail down the details of what we're going to do on offense and defense, we're going to be even more competitive. I know Gus had a pretty good track record against Alabama, better than really any other college football coach, but Georgia we really struggled with. I'm really hoping this kind of swings the momentum back to we can compete against Georgia even in Athens, because we're going to have to do that, not this year, but next year. And that I don't want to have to go into there and just hope and pray that we have the chance at beating them. I want to make it closer to better rivalry of it could go either way, just depending on whichever team shows up better that day.
Yeah, it had become on away games, rivalry games. It was a foregone conclusion, and that's probably ultimately what did Gus in. But yeah, I would love to be able to go into rivalry or any road game and at least say, hey, we need to watch because there's at least a chance.
Yeah, no, really. We had some away games that we were really good at, like Texas A&M, but then we had others that, going into Athens, even if we had the better team, sometimes it's just like, Kirby had our number, or, back in, I think, 2018, I want to say, it was when Tennessee beat us, and it was just like, they knew exactly what we were running, and it's like, all right, we got to change some things up. We did, but it wasn't enough. And new coaching staff kind of brings that newness, and I'm sure teams are going to be trying to figure out what Auburn's doing this year, offense, defense, trying to figure us out. But it sounds like we'll be able to kind of stay ahead of that curve, especially at the beginning of the season, especially when we got the 4 kind of tune-up games at the beginning. All right, Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can just find me on Facebook and Instagram under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?